everybody, and welcome to the Winging It F1 podcast. This is going to be our Barcelona test rundown for the pre-season track session for Formula One's 2022 season. I'm Freddie Coates, and I'm joined by Alan Dickinson and Nigel Chu to talk you through everything, well, as much as we know that's gone on from Barcelona testing, and set up the Bahrain test in a couple of weeks' time and everything that's going on with F1 at the moment. But first of all, we should, of course, talk about all the horrific news that's come out of Ukraine at the moment and the knock-on effect it's had on the Formula One community. Now, it's no surprise to you guys, the news that's gone on, which is that Vladimir Putin and Russia have illegally invaded Ukraine. It's an act of wanton violence that just comes as a hangover of one man's, as Sebastian Vettel said, mad leadership and harkening back to a defunct Soviet Union. And I think I speak for the other two for in condemning every action that's gone on with this, and in speaking for a huge amount of sympathy for every civilian in Ukraine, every military member in Ukraine who have lost their lives in this just horrific act of aggression that seems completely pointless and stupid. And to everyone in Russia protesting against it and in Ukraine protesting against it, and across the world, that's incredibly brave. And yeah, I think we stand with them against the aggression. Naturally, with this being such a global event and with Formula One being such a global sport, this has spilled over into the Formula One bubble, if you will. Formula One likes to kind of keep itself distant from this kind of thing. From politics is not meant to be in sport, but as we know, politics and sport go hand in hand, and this cannot really be escaped. Naturally, Haas F1 team has a very, very close relationship with the elite in Russia, in that Nikita Mazepin's drive is essentially funded from sponsorship from Uralkali, their parent company Uralchem, owned by Dmitry Mazepin, who is one of the essentially top 30 business people in Russia. As of the Friday of the test, the not even 24 hours after Russia's offensive officially began in non-Russia recognized Ukraine, previously sort of coordinated Ukraine in from Russian forces, Haas have attempted to distance themselves from any relation to this. They've removed all Uralkali branding from their car, removed this pseudo-Russian flag stripes that were across the car for all of 2021 and the start of 2022 testing. And currently there is a lot of flux about really the survival of the team and about their financial situations with their Uralkali sponsors and for their driver, Nikita Mazepin. With Mazepin's drive coming from this funding, if they want to distance themselves from the sponsor, then they distance themselves from the driver. That comes hand in hand. But also sanctions being put in place by international governments realistically mean that Nikita Mazepin will only be allowed into 2 or 3 countries across the year regarding visa requirements. So there is a lot to come for Haas. They're going to deal with all of the legal ramifications as best they can over the coming couple of weeks. And really, we wish them the best at this difficult time for them, and wish the best to everyone who works in that team, who have been through the mill these past couple of years with, frankly, a necessity to survive. And we wish them all the best. And we're pretty sure F1 is not going to let them down, and they're going to be supported through this situation. And we expect to see Haas on the grid throughout the year, of course, because if there's any time to support that team, that's now. Naturally as well, the Russian Grand Prix has been swiftly called off for 2022. That would have been the last race in Sochi anyway. So if there is any return to the Russian Grand Prix from 2023, which contractually there is reason to believe there could be, but that's nothing really to be considering now in the global situation. The 2022 Russian Grand Prix will not go ahead in September. And that's essentially it from that front. We're not going to discuss any sort of silly season antics now. Who could take the Haas seat, or which track could replace Sochi at that kind of slot, just because we feel that's relatively insensitive at the moment. So we're not going to discuss that. We're just going to discuss the test and talk about Formula One as an entity and Formula One as a competition as best we can, and try and enjoy it in this uncomfortable global scenario at the moment. But yes, of course, everyone in Ukraine, our heart goes out to you, and we know it means nothing to say that, but genuinely, it's a really scary world, and we're really thinking about you, and we wish you all the best.
I think you've done a fantastic job summing that up. It's I don't know, kind of unbelievable in some ways to be seeing kind of what's on the TV screens and what's on the news right now. But yeah, there's kind of incredible stories of bravery going on and kind of incredibly tragic stories going on as well. And it kind of feels weird to be discussing sport and sports kind of relation to that at a time where it's kind of so minor. But yeah, I think that's, you've done a fantastic job summing us up, and in kind of the best thing we can do is just discuss the test and discuss what's been going on separately from Ukraine.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic introduction there, Freddie. Really, like pretty much every word you said, I can concur with there. Just like Adam said, it's, for F1, you've got to put the sport on the side almost, and politics is coming first in this scenario. And yeah, it's just difficult. And obviously coming off the back of COVID as well, the pandemic. It's just it's not the best world right there out the world. It's not the best world out there right now. Hopefully people listening to this want to hear about the F1 test, and we can give you in 50 minutes or 60 minutes of I guess just to take you away from whether you're working or doing whatever.
Exactly that. Let's have a light release for an hour just to chat about cars going around circles in Spain. Why not? It's something we all enjoy, something we all love and have loved for a long time, and will love for a long time to come. And let's just enjoy that. So without further ado, let's talk about the first test of the 2022 F1 season. And straight away, I'm going to go and talk about how much I love looking at all of these cars. I'm sure you guys will have seen all the pictures coming out of the test. Yes, it's a closed test, but that hasn't stopped anyone from realizing how unbelievable 2022 Formula One looks on track. I think we tried on our last podcast to kind of have a vague sort of ranking of liveries and to kind of give opinions of what we thought was best and so on. Looking at them all on track, obviously barring the Alfa Romeo, which is still yet to be officially launched, but with its kind of Arctic camo livery, I think they all look pretty mega. These 2022 cars just, I mean, wow! I think it's fantastic. Nigel, how's 2022 F1 sat with you so far?
It's sitting pretty well, I have to say. I mean, after the Ferrari launch, I thought the Ferrari itself was one of the best looking cars this century. I think the whole grid kind of backs up that point where I don't think, from since I've been watching F1 and you guys have been watching F1, I don't think I've seen better looking cars ever. That's quite incredible considering in the last few years we've had the halo, the cars have got wider, the tyres have got bigger. Even with these bigger tyres, I think the cars look fantastic. So if the racing and the competition can match that, then yeah, it's going to be one hell of a season.
Yeah, it's just kind of, they look kind of classic and modern at the same time. I think kind of, so especially the Red Bull kind of reminds me of kind of 2007, 2008 cars when I started watching, but then they've also just seemed so much more advanced than that. I think they look fantastic, and when we're seeing them all going out, being able to watch them, live in anger and racing together, I think they'll look even better. But for the moment, it's not a bad starting point.
And this is going to be probably a contentious question for you guys, because I know I don't have an answer for it. But what's your favorite on track? I know we had seen renders and stuff prior, but on track, what car stood out to you the most and made you think, oh, wow, I love Formula One? Adam, I'll come to you first. I know you just said the Red Bull, but is that going to be your answer?
The Mercedes with the fluoro paint on was just because I took a second to be like, what? I didn't know like a lollipop was running in the race, and then it's a Mercedes with fluoro paint. But yeah, I think it's either the Red Bull or the Ferrari. I think the Ferrari looks very good and it looks very classic and classy. So I'll probably say that. Yeah, one of those two.
Nigel?
Yeah, still a Ferrari for me. I think I said it after the launch. I stand by it now when it's out.
2022 world champions.
I did, yeah, I said that as well. I still stand by that. Well, no, I think some of the other teams, the Mercedes, the Red Bull, the Aston Martin, the Williams as well, they look all fantastic. So, yeah, we've got a brilliant set of looking cars this year.
I think personally, I've been pleasantly surprised by the Alfa Tauri. I think that looks a lot better than I thought it would. But I mean, the Ferrari just looks like something we've never seen before. And that's just unbelievable to me. I absolutely love that. I think we're all going to sound like broken records this season in our adoration of that car. Now, really, straight away, pretty early on in this test, we got the word of arguably 2022 when it comes to Formula One cars. And that is porpoising, or as Nigel told me, he thought it was porpoising, which is
spelled like that.
which is an aerodynamic phenomenon that appears to have been a ground effect, little hiccup in the road that people didn't really expect, but has also been expected apparently. Nigel, do you want to put your aerodynamics hat on and give us your crude explanation of porpoising?
I'll do exactly that, Freddie. So it's basically a sudden change in the airflow, which causes the car to bounce up and down like a kangaroo, which we've seen all over social media. Like Freddie said, it's because of the ground effect, with the cars being sucked down to the ground. But then when they're hitting these high speeds, the car is almost trying to drag itself away from the ground. So that's why it's bouncing up and down. And the easy fix is to raise the ride height. But of course, if you do that, it'll cost you performance, you'll lose lap time, and it'll affect everything else from the front of the car to the back. So I'd be interested to see if F1 decides to do anything with this, whether they think it's safe. But yeah, it's a topic that certainly has gathered more and more momentum as the test has gone on.
It has caused a little bit of a headache for pretty much every F1 team. George Russell did say at its worst it could be a safety concern. So this is going to be a topic that runs probably for the next few years, not just this season, not just the start of this season. So likelihood is, as we get to various tracks, particularly bumpy tracks, I can imagine going to Azerbaijan and Baku this year, that this is going to be huge, as that is a street track with immense speed. But really, this looks like it's going to be a tricky headache for the engineers. But would you say that that's just a challenge of the new regulations, Adam?
Yeah, I think so. It kind of seems to come about kind of maybe predictably with the lack of on-track testing. It's, a lot of wind tunnel testing, a lot of simulation testing, and then you get out onto track and you see something like that, which, they either didn't expect to be this bad. And if you look at some of the videos, like, I can't remember if it was today's or yesterday's test, but of Charles Leclerc kind of, it's really vigorous bouncing. It's not kind of to be taken lightly, really. But yeah, it's a challenge, and that's kind of what, it's a challenge at the highest level, and that's kind of what F1 teams are built to solve. So, I imagine for the season they'll be, kind of compromising on setup between, comfort and safety and performance with porpoising, and we'll just have to see how it, if we turn up to Australia and there's a load of kangaroo cars bouncing down the straight, but who knows?
It's a big problem now. but I think the teams will find a way around it, and I think it'll become less and less of a topic as the season goes on, I think.
Yeah, teams will find a way around this. I mean, along with raising the right height, as you said, Nigel, I mean, stiffening the cars as well can also sort this out, because it forces the car to essentially stay in the position they want it to, which is difficult on a bumpy track, but the majority of tracks we go to these days are smooth as anything. And there's been a lot of resurfacing in recent years. On top of that, though, one of the main issues with the porpoising and sort of forcing a car to not porpoise is sort of the effect the road will have on the car. And there's been a few teams that have been alluding to the fact that maybe these cars are going to get the planks on the bottom of the car is going to get worn down so much that they'll end up being essentially running illegal and could get disqualified at the end of the race. So who knows? Maybe this would be a huge topic in that regard, or maybe they'll just have very beefed up planks at the bottom of the car. Who knows? I mean, and apparently a few of the teams are running overweight as is, so I doubt they'll want to do that. But it's going to run for a few races, definitely. And we just thought we'd address that head on in this first testing product podcast, because there's a chance we'll reference it later down the line as we go on to the first winners of the winners and losers section of Formula One 2022. Woo! Yeah, hooray! Winners and losers. Yeah. So,
woo.
Winners of the test, and not just because they have the best livery. Ferrari. Nigel, why Ferrari have had a good test? Give us the rundown of them testing now. Yay, go.
Well, they've
deep down
updated
question.
the engine again. They've updated the engine again through the winter. They've not had any problems at all, which is unlike some of the other teams. Alpine have issues, Aston Martin as well. So Ferrari have had probably, along with McLaren, the smoothest test so far. And that's what the first test is all about. You want to get mileage, you want to get laps. Not really too much about the lap times. And Ferrari have ran pretty much trouble-free. So I think they'll be pretty happy with how things have gone. Yes, they are still playing things down and saying Mercedes are ahead. But I think Ferrari are definitely going to be in the mix somewhere.
Yeah, they've definitely had a very good test. Adam?
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of the balance of analysing testing times and seeing, thinking how much teams are showing their hand and whatever. But regardless of that, they're getting a lot of laps in, and they have been at the top, especially the first 2 days, they were near the top or at the top of the timesheets. So yeah, it's, with the obvious caveat, from everything we've seen, and they're looking pretty good, and everything we can analyse, then they seem to have it about them. So it's good times for Ferrari, and good looking times as well.
George Russell said at the end of the second day that a red car and an orange car look better than them. He's already learned the Mercedes lesson of saying that they're the worst car on the grid. But the orange car he's alluding to is the orange car he's alluding to is McLaren, who've also had a relatively good test. No,
really?
Yeah, it's McLaren.
Not the other orange car.
No, it's not that little bit of the Red Bull if you look at it slightly wrong.
Did he not say the orange and blue car, just to clarify?
No, he didn't. He was very rude.
George.
But yes, the orange McLaren, papaya, as he should say, the fool.
Not on brand.
No, he's not on brand for the team he doesn't drive for.
He needs to torpedo their brand. He needs to worsen it. Of course he's going to say orange.
Yes, as their rival, he's not going to get any of their branding tips right. But anyway, naturally, George is right. The McLaren have had a good test. They've wanted to play it down a bit. Lando Norris went fastest on day one and immediately said, "I don't want to be fastest, for goodness sake." It didn't go well for him when Daniel Ricciardo topped the morning session of the next day either. But anyway, apparently from better eyes than me, because I've not been there, but people who've been in Barcelona have said that McLaren looks absolutely fantastic in the changing of direction and in the high speed, which is where these cars make up their time, the high speed. So McLaren seems to be one to watch as well. Nigel, do you buy this, or do you think McLaren have had one or two glory runs?
No, I do buy it. And I think the other thing I'll add to the change of direction is they are the team who I've heard the least about, who've had the porpoising. said it right that time. Issues that I've not. I think every team is having a problem with it, but McLaren seem to be making the best of it at the moment, at least. So that could help them, particularly at the start of the season. And I think it's quite clear that there's 4 teams who are going to be at the front in some kind of order. Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes, and McLaren is the 4th one. And whether they're 1, 2, 3, or 4, we don't know. But I think that's just split in the pecking order at the moment. And just like Ferrari, apart from Norris causing a red flag on the first day, I think it was, when he stopped at the end of the pit lane. Was that a red flag? He might have just stopped at the end.
I think he just stopped.
Yeah, I think.
Apart from that, they've had no problems as well. So very similar tests for Ferrari and McLaren.
Yeah, it's all looking good. There's kind of not too much more to add. I think you summed it up very well. But again, like we said with Ferrari, they're getting laps in. They've been getting around 100 or over 100 for most of the days, and yeah, that's kind of all we can really look at. I think they're in a strong position.
Definitely. They both have. They definitely both have been talked of in the same mindset as Red Bull and Mercedes, as you said, Nigel, which is very refreshing to see. If it is just for the next couple of weeks, that's still going to be quite nice, because of course we are very used to talking about front runners who aren't front runners after these kind of tests. That's just the way of the world. Another team who really, in terms of on-track performance, are down as a winner are the Haas team. They were very, very obviously the team who developed the 2022 car from the earliest point. They openly admitted they weren't going to develop their 2021 car because what was the point when they would probably gain on only Alfa Romeo if they had a good day. So Haas unveiled their official 2022 car, completely different to the renders they released prior to the season's test starting. And it looks really nice, and it's run pretty nicely as well when they've got out on track. It's been a fairly unreliable, with a few parts breaking, the odd oil leak as well. But when it's been on track, it seems to have been relatively tidy and seems to have been definitely vaulting them back up into the midfield where really this team belong. Nigel, you impressed with the running we've seen from the American team?
I wouldn't say impressed, because I think they had to make this step forward. And because if they didn't, then clearly something had gone wrong since they put everything into this year. The not running on the final day in the afternoon, it's not the best way to end the first test for them. But like you said, Freddie, when they were on track, they did look much, much better. So I think they've got a car which the drivers will find easier to drive, easier to set up, perhaps. I think that'll put them in a good place. I think it's hard to say who's the slowest team, but I feel like Haas are not going to be last this year, and that's a big positive, straight away.
Yeah, I think the first day of the test, they kind of wasn't as great. They got, I think, 40 odd laps in, which isn't fantastic, but they've been kind of improving as they've gone along, and particularly day 2 they were strong. So yeah, I think like you said, it's kind of hard to identify slowest team, but like we said on the preview, I think just with Haas, they've not got kind of the stellar driver lineup to kind of, I guess, rely on. So I think the car needs to be up there, and it's shown signs that it can be if they can get it, together and moving for an extended period of time, which I think we all hope they can, and kind of put themselves in the fight at the top. But I think that's to me where the biggest question mark is.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the most developed cars in the field at the moment.
Yes.
Whether there's more in the pipeline to come for that with the second test, the B-spec cars that always seem to sort of pop up these days, who knows? But they really do have sort of the most sort of unique little flicks and tricks to it. For instance, this nice little sort of strakes on the side of the front wing. They're the only ones who seem to have anything a bit different to that. They have a nice little kind of, not the kind of sort of engine cover top weird funnel thing. I don't know if we've given it a word yet, but let's coin something for it now. The the sort of canopyism of it. I don't know. The canopyism on top of that, which isn't a word I've claimed. I just liked it as a car. It just looked nice, in my opinion. I think mostly because I was surprised by it. But anyway, are there any other teams you are going to put in the category of winner of this first test? Anna, I'm going to come to you first because I've come to Nigel first quite a few times.
Yeah. No,
I caught you out.
I don't know. I think probably the obvious. I mean, Red Bull, seem to have turned it with a very fast car, and I still think they might be holding things back. I mean, they seem to have gone a bit quicker today on day 3 than they had in the previous 2 days, and I still think they've got something in reserve. And the question is, are Mercedes in the same boat? Because they, as you said before, George Russell did the age-old Mercedes, we're not the fastest, there are 8 teams faster than us quote, but today Lewis went fastest at the end of the session and looked pretty good at the end of that. So it's whether they're kind of showing everything or not yet. Yeah. But broadly speaking, both of those two expected front runners are looking pretty good.
Yeah, I think Mercedes and Red Bull kind of hit back on the final day. Ferrari probably had the best tests up until then. Yeah. But then Red Bull with Verstappen in the morning, he looked very good on the C3 tyre, I think it was. And then Russell and Hamilton go fastest in the morning and afternoon sessions. So, as expected, they've not done a 2008 where Ferrari and McLaren dropped back. Mercedes and Red Bull are still going to be at the sharp end of the grid. And for Mercedes to go fastest in testing as well it's not unusual, but
it's usually ominous.
It's always, that famous O word that everyone uses during testing. But usually, if you look at last year, how far behind they were in testing, yet they won the first race. So for them to go fastest, I know we shouldn't look at lap times, but it suggests that they've found something perhaps on the final day, and it's looking pretty good for them.
They've all been experimenting with different kind of little gills on the back for cooling and everything. And who knows, maybe they've got a bit more confidence as the test has gone on, which is completely understandable. But they're the biggest B-spec rumours of any team. So who knows? It's the classic, don't make any sound judgments on anything because testing. So don't listen to us. But do, you've probably got half an hour left. Listen to that.
And think while you're listening to us as well. Just one more. Do you think you could put Aston in a winners? I know they've not. I know they've had a few more gremlins today on day 3, but their times have been up there and they're getting the laps in. They kind of seem to, it seems to have been a solid test. Although I don't know whether you can have 5 winners because that's half the grid. But anyway,
I agree. It's been steady.
Well, it has for me. They've had a few problems, but when they have been out on track, they've looked pretty good. Compared to last year, they've looked much better. So similar to Haas. I wouldn't really say Haas is a winner. I'd say it's like a sub-winner. And I think I'd have Aston Martin in that category as well.
I think just thinking about it now, I'd put AlphaTauri above both of them. I mean, I know we expect a lot until Gasly crashed, but I mean, the performance-wise, I'd have them up there. I mean, I know we expect a lot from AlphaTauri, particularly from Gasly's performances last year, which were very good. If occasional for a few of them.
Sean Connery on the podcast.
God, I hope not. But anyway, I think we could see some very nice performance from AlphaTauri as well. Depending on how that car develops, we don't know whether they're a hit ground running team or not. They tend to be kind of half on the development side, but
I think
I like them.
Yeah, so do I. I guess maybe Aston's maybe been a bit more of a pleasant surprise, I'd say, than I kind of expected AlphaTauri to be, to be doing well. But with Aston, obviously early days, we don't know anything yet. But I think, it seems to be a pleasantly optimistic test. Although I think last year their test started well and then kind of didn't stay like that. So we don't know.
It was poor.
I think AlphaTauri, the one problem they have is I feel, especially with the Honda engine, they perhaps push it more to help Red Bull to see if there are problems and stuff like that. I think we saw that last year with Tsunoda going very fast as well. So if out of all of the teams, they might be showing their hand the most, that might put them on the back foot perhaps. So yeah, that's the only thing. But still, they've had a pretty good test until Gasly crashed.
Yeah, until Gasly crashed. But obviously, talking about winners means we need to move on to the more depressing topic of the losers. Losers. But we have sympathy. We like everyone. We're not going to say that. But the first loser we have written on the planning doc is loser Alpine. Alpine F1 team. Of course, we haven't spoken about Alpine F1 team since their launch. So we'll give a quick blue and pink, and then pink for the first 2 races, but also 2 liveries. But they leaked one of them, but it was the wrong one, but it was the right one. Wow. But anyway, now we've cleared that up. We're going to talk about their test, which has been a little bit disappointing. They haven't run DRS at all for the whole thing. Their speed trap figures have been weird. They're the only team running the Renault engine, so we don't know if they're just running it really low or if the Renault engine's really bad. It's been their first complete aggressive redesign since the V6 turbo hybrid era began, and it all went up in smoke on the final day, which isn't exactly amazing. So yeah, Alpine have been a bit asking, leaving a lot to be desired. That's the phrase. And that's a bit unfortunate, wouldn't you say, boys?
I'd say having an engine go like that and having all that smoke isn't ideal. Just on the livery, I was talking to one of my French students here in Oklahoma, and we're both F1 fans, and I said, what do you think of the Alpine livery? And he goes, it's okay, but blue and pinky sheet. And that was his analysis of it, which I thought summed it up pretty well. I think it's taken a step back in terms of aesthetics from last season, but yeah, it's I don't. It's been disappointing. I think if you, comparing them to Aston, maybe their closest competitors, and I think I'd say Aston's had a better, or to be honest, they've had a worse testing than Aston. It kind of just it's not all come together for them at all, really. And the kind of positive is that they've got good drivers in the team and they can make the most of a back package. But it's like you say, it's not been fantastic. They've not been putting together what they need to, especially today.
I think the first 2 days were actually okay because they had a new engine and everything was going all right for Alonso and Ocon. It's just the final day with that massive blow up. It kind of suggests that the first 2 days they had the engine on a low power mode and then they've turned it up a little bit or by X amount, and it can't take it, which is really not a good sign. And we've not seen an engine blow up that big for quite some time. I mean, it literally was up in absolute smoke everywhere. So not ideal. And pace-wise as well, not having DRS, it's really difficult to read where they are, if they are close to the front or the back. So there's a lot of question marks around Alpine at the moment, but not a lot of. They haven't given me much confidence compared to, say, the top 4 teams, and I think that's not good for a team that put a lot of effort into this year.
Yeah, I think. I think so. I mean, it's the kind of, like you said, the engine blow up has kind of gone out of the lexicon a bit of, you're kind of not talking about, it might happen. It's especially when we started watching F1, and obviously before that as well, it was kind of, it felt like any given weekend it could happen to any given driver, but it's kind of, they've short it a bit more, and like you say, it's the biggest blow seen in a while. Freddie?
Yeah, no, I'm just going to agree with Nigel. It hasn't really given me much confidence, which is a shame because I like them as a team. I think it's nice, and Ocon and Alonso was a very fun lineup last year, and I kind of wanted to see, I think they both of them earned the kind of team performance step up that this year could have brought, and it just from their performances as drivers, but unfortunately it doesn't seem to have been transitioning. Their aim is fifth, which for a manufacturer in their sixth or seventh year since sort of official manufacturerness and the second rules redesign based in that era isn't exactly the best opportunity for them. They should be aiming higher, but obviously the Formula One competitive order has been incredibly stagnant recently, so maybe aiming for fifth now is a bit better than aiming for second in 2 or 3 years. But that's where it always feels like a team that could have its funding pulled at any minute, which is a bit uncomfortable.
When they said that, when they said that they targeted fifth, I found that really disappointing.
Yeah, totally.
They've been working on this car for 3 years because they decided that they wanted to go with these new regs rather than building a new car in 2020. I think it was after 2019 car didn't hit the expectations. So for that to happen, and for a team like this, it's just underwhelming, I think is the word I'd use.
Yeah,
I agree. I think especially with that driver lineup, if they put, just a half decent package out there, they should really be fifth. That's what happened last season. I think fifth should be kind of the minimum for them really. So like you said, it's not that, ambitious.
So yes, that's Alpine. Another loser from this test in our eyes is disappointingly Alfa Romeo, a team who could have used this opportunity to kind of jump up the order. They spoke a lot at the end of last season about having hangovers in their team structure and team car based on financial instability in 2016 and 17 when the last regulation change occurred, and that they were just struggling to come back from that. And now in the budget cap era, they hope they would be able to. But with their all-new look driver lineup with Valtteri Bottas and Guan Yu Zhou, they really struggled to get just out the garage. Unfortunately for them, they've had so many reliability woes, little parts breaking, electrical just niggles, frankly. And it's just been a bit of a messy operation, unfortunately, from them. They haven't really been able to get into a stride with the test. And it feels like this could be to me, it feels like this could be a theme for this season. Does that ring true for you guys, or do you think there's still roads to improve and come back? Nigel?
I think the problem they've had all test is, we talked about McLaren having the least problems with the porpoising. I think Alfa have the opposite problem, where they are having a lot of problems, and I think the floor, I think they've had to change it quite often, which has cost them track time. Because the car just can't handle the jumping. So I think that is the biggest problem they've had, and that's why they've had so little track time. So you could say, on one hand, they know the problem, they can fix it, but it's just not what you want for the first test. Because like we said, the first test is all about laps and mileage, and Alfa are at the bottom in those, in those areas. So
as of today, Haas are lower than them because they ran 9 laps on the final day, to be fair. But they've only just, with a fairly decent amount of running on the final day, Alfa Romeo have only just really cleared Haas on mileage. They're on something like 800 odd kilometers, and to put them into perspective, Ferrari are north of 2,000, but Ferrari are way clear, but that's a big difference.
Yeah. So I think it's just the porpoising which has affected them the most. That's how I see it.
Yeah, it's just one of those. It's they can fix the problems, but it's problems that the other teams are more on top of already. So they're going in, and they're already a step behind or 3 steps behind everyone, and it just again, with the driver lineup, you feel they need to have a good, quite a high base to be competitive and, be kind of pushing into the top 10 regularly. And they've not got that so far. And, it just already feels like they're going to be running behind for, the first period of the season. Obviously, it's a long season and things can change, but it's just already looking like it could be another season of kind of obscurity for them.
And the problem is the stuff that they were going to do in this first test, they're now going to have to do in Bahrain while everyone else is trying to do performance lap times. So they really are on the back foot, and it's going to be difficult to make up for this lost time.
On the positive side of it, though, their rookie driver Guan Yu Zhou appears to have been fairly positive and has had some fairly nice feedback settling in with the team. He's not looking out of place as a Formula One driver, in my opinion. What do you guys think of his debut test as a fully fledged Formula One driver, Adam?
Yeah, he's had a few more problems with the car, or his car has had a few more problems today. But yeah, he's been there. There's he didn't run on the first day. I believe they had Kubica in, and then the second day he looked pretty good, and today's been a bit more restricted. So it's a small sample size, but yeah, he seems to be all right there. He's done a fair amount with his links, especially at Alpine. He's done a fair amount of kind of driving F1 cars up to this point. So he's probably one of the more kind of, if we disregard kind of junior series clout in terms of time in the car, he's probably one of the more race ready or F1 ready drivers to step up. So yeah, it's kind of looking conservatively positive, but as I say, small sample size. We've still got I'd like to see a bit more before coming to a big conclusion on that.
I think he's made very, very good first steps. I mean, the worst thing any new F1 driver can do is crash, make a silly mistake or spin, and he's not done any of those things. And we can't really look at pace that much, but it's not like he's 3-4 seconds behind everyone else. He's right there. So he's looking good at the moment. We'll just have to see how he goes when we get to a race weekend.
Yeah, fingers crossed for him, because I think he had a bit of a rough reaction to his Formula One drive selection from Alfa Romeo. But I think we all wish him the best.
Yeah.
Unfair, I agree. I think he's definitely a competitive driver, and I think he can definitely be competitive in Formula One. So hopefully we're proven right on that, and hopefully he performs well. I think we're all in his corner, as you'd expect from
Sheffield alum as well.
Yeah, Sheffield alum, which makes him even more in our corner, because we're Sheffield biased. But yeah, really, we've just got to we've come really to the end of our talk on this test, but we've just got to re-emphasize: we know nothing. We don't know anything. We know what tyres the times are. We don't know if they're fully fueled or if they're no fueled. We don't know what's a glory run and what's a unhappy run. I don't know what the opposite of a glory run is. Unglorious run. And who knows? Every year we think something from testing and it's wrong or it's right. Who knows? It's all a lie. Ignore what you've just heard. Nigel,
I think
tell them what not to listen to.
I was going to say, one talking point is, I don't think anyone as well. No one's done a brawl where it was clear early on that they'd done something bad. So we can say that.
Yes.
Sorry.
It looks like no one is going to really dominate. Yes, Mercedes are 1-2, but it really does feel like at least one of Red Bull, Ferrari, or McLaren will be there to challenge. I think between those 4 teams, those aren't going to be the 4 teams at the front. It's just, are they all going to be close, or is one team going to have that slight edge? So I think that's what we can conclude, that we've got those 4 teams, then everyone else.
Yeah, that was kind of going to be my major takeaway, is that it's fine, someone's got to have one. No team looks like they've really kind of pulled a flyer, or I think I'm optimistic that things will be pretty close. I think it'll be closer than they were in 2014. And obviously teams will be holding stuff back, and I think particularly Mercedes and Red Bull, as we said at the top of the show, maybe we're still to see their true colours or their true capabilities. But I think there's reason to be optimistic that things will be pretty close.
Yeah, I agree. Reason to be optimistic, definitely. And I think, yeah, so that's moving on to sort of our main takeaways. Adam, obviously you alluded to yours there, but I think for me, definitely optimism about the season. I think it's very easy to get excited for Formula One from testing, and it's definitely worked for me this year. And I'm really looking forward to Bahrain test. Nigel, what's going to be your takeaway? Are you going to talk about anyone's performance, what you want to see, what you think's gone well?
I think away from the front of the field, I think Williams have had a very positive test as well, more so, or just as much as Haas and Aston, who we mentioned before. I think both drivers got up to speed really quickly, so I think that's an important aspect because it suggests the car is easy to drive, and they haven't had many problems as well. So I think they're going to be somewhere in the midfield, and if they can battle for points consistently, and that'll be a fantastic result for them. So I think Williams should be pretty positive as well. And yeah, I mentioned that just to mention, just so that we've mentioned all 10 teams in this podcast.
Yeah, great point. I think for me that's incredibly true. Williams have done very nicely, and I think really a lot of what is there for Williams is only way is up, but I think that's where they're heading. So I think we can class that as a tick for that team. And to be honest, just one thing to say on that car, it looks a lot better on track than it did anywhere else, in my opinion. And this is the second year running that I've had this with Williams, where the car looks, well, third year actually, because if you count 2020's testing only car, where I thought it looks good or it looks all right, and then you see it in person, you're like, oh, I like that. And that's exactly what I think about that car.
I was actually going to say the opposite. I thought it looked a bit better in the studio shots, or it looked good at Silverstone in the rain when they tested it. But I don't know. I've not been as big a fan of it this test. But that's pretty low down on the list of priorities, and the top of it is how they run, and they've been running pretty well, and both drivers have been doing okay, especially Albon in his return to the sport. So. Yeah, again, reason to be positive.
Adam, I know Nigel took your final takeaway earlier, but have you come up with a more final takeaway?
No, there's only room for one final takeaway, and when your takeaway is as final as mine was, then that's just the way things are.
I think my final point is.
Another one, third for Nigel.
I've been sorry, Adam. I've been during the car launches. We mentioned it as well. Is that everyone's got different designs, and the Red Bull, I mean, it just looks absolutely crazy. Oh God, yeah. The side pods. I mean, when I saw that for the first time, it was almost scary. It was just so aggressive. It was incredible.
That was Adam's opening point, actually. Interestingly, your final takeaway is Adam's opening point.
Yeah, hopefully. We've got a competitive field, and if we can have different designs that produce the same lap times, then what more can we ask for?
Totally. What more can we ask for? And I think we've definitely got a good season on our hands. We've got a lot more coming up in F1. There isn't testing until the 10th of March. So we've got 2 weeks or so, more or less, until that final 3 days of testing kicks off. That will be broadcast live on Sky F1 or your provider.
F1
TV, basically. And it'll be a Sky F1 TV joint production, as it has been in the past couple of years. And similarly, you'll have wrap-ups on the end of the day, and we'll be talking about it on our social channels and previewing and reviewing said test as we then move into the Bahrain Grand Prix, which is in about 3 weeks' time for the first Grand Prix of the season. And if there's anything to live up to from last year's race, if it's going to replicate that in any way, we'll be jumping up and down like there's no tomorrow. Obviously, there's a lot to come for that test. We're going to have B-spec cars all over the plot, all over the shop. Merc and Alpine are rumoured already to be bringing cars which have a few more plug and play parts on them, more so than they've had in this test, which has seemed to have been the test more than ever that I can remember, where they've just put on different bits to the cars anyway, just like, oh, whatever, let's give it a go. Which seems to be, even with different philosophies all over the place, they seem to be correlating with each other. What are you guys looking forward to in the next week of F1 news? What do you think is going to happen? Anything, or you just think it's just going to be just hype?
Well, the obvious thing is how the Ukraine development affects Haas, which we spoke about at the top of the show. So it's not, I'm not looking forward to it, but I think, to be honest, I think that'll be the main dominant news, really. Sorry to put kind of downer on the end of the show, but yeah, I think that'll be that's what I see. Maybe not. Maybe.
No, I think you're right, Adam. But I think testing wise, we're going to hear a lot about how big are the upgrades, are we gonna that the teams are bringing, are we going to get B spec cars and stuff like that, and then it's just about seeing who has got those upgrades in 2 weeks' time. So I think that'll be the key, really.
Yeah, entirely. From an F1 perspective, it's going to be keeping an eye on rumors galore. But you're right, Adam. As you say, it is. We should really go full circle to end this pod, and again send out our best to everyone in Ukraine in the incredibly difficult situation over there, and anywhere in the world which seems to be on the brink of a bit of disaster, who's struggling with this kind of situation. Obviously, our thoughts go out to you, and we wish you all the best in this time. But thank you very much for listening to this podcast. We hope it's been, for the most part, a nice little release if you've got all the way through, and that you're using F1 as a bit of fun in a way that all three of us certainly are. It's coming back at just the right time for me personally. If I don't want to sound too flippant or anything with anything I say, but it's definitely nice to have it back, and hopefully you'll be able to join us again to discuss the upcoming test in Bahrain, the test in Bahrain, and eventually the 2022 Formula One season. So thank you very much, everybody. All the best. Look after yourselves. Take care. Goodbye.
Bye.